Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, Highlift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. As they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Well, hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And I am honored today to have a repeat guest now. We had Mike on last year, but I'm really excited. I got to see him down at the CIC in the Southeast Collision Conference, and he agreed to come back on because I think he's got an interesting topic there, especially when we're looking at building value in our business. So for those of you who don't know Mike Anderson, he's kind of the guru in the business, if you don't mind me calling you that, Mike.
Thank you.
He's been owned multiple shops. He now has Collision Advice, which is an industry research, reference, and consulting business. Speaks with a lot of passion. I mean, every conference that I go to, Mike's talks are just packed. The room is just packed full, and he's got just a wealth of knowledge in the business and just kind of seeing, especially in the research that he does. So, Mike, I'm really honored to have you on again. Thank you for coming on to Your Business, Your Life.
No, it's my honor, and I'm very humbled and grateful for the opportunity. So thank you so much.
No problem. Listen, I'm humbled too here. So anyway, Mike, I know, your topic this year is about being extraordinary. So I wanted you to just kind of touch on that a little bit because, for those shop owners who may not have had the chance to hear you speak this year, talk a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so every year I pick a theme as, I go around the country and I speak. And my theme for this year is be extraordinary. And I believe that, first of all, it seems like everybody has cars to fix or vehicles to fix, but not everybody has people. So you need to have an extraordinary culture so that people don't just love their job, they love the organization they work for. So you got to be an extraordinary employer and have an extraordinary culture. I believe we also have to deliver an extraordinary customer service experience. A lot of times people confuse customer service from customer experience, right? And so customer service is just the table stakes, right? Answering the phone within 2 rings and greeting them. Yeah. But we have to deliver a phenomenal customer experience because, as one of the things I learned from a gentleman by the name of Nick Schoolcraft from Phoenix Solutions, he talked about that there's a term called social proof. Yeah. That today's vehicle owners or consumers are looking for social proof that we can be trusted. So in order for us to get that social proof, which could be, having your shop listed on an OEM shop locator or online reviews, we have to deliver an extraordinary customer service experience so that somebody wants to go online and give us a review. The other thing that we said you have to be extraordinary at is OEM research. Today's vehicles are much more complicated with ADAS and calibrations and possibly electric vehicles that are entering into our future now. We need to make sure that we're extraordinary at understanding how to utilize the OEM repair procedures in order to figure out how to fix the vehicle safely and properly. And there were some other areas that I touched on in my presentation as well, but we just have to be extraordinary. My dad used to have a saying, my father passed away last May, but my dad said that being average is just as close to the bottom as it is to the top. And so our goal should be to strive to be above average or be extraordinary.
Right. Yeah. There's an old saying that says good is always gets in the way of great.
Yes.
And too many times I think we do things, hey, we're doing a good job. But if we just took that little extra step, how that can really transform your business. I know one of the things I loved in your talks is when you called the shops, and it is amazing to me because, well, why'd you explain the process? I think that's I think that's fascinating. It's probably better you explaining it than me. So
sure. So one of the other areas we say that you need to be extraordinary at is you need to be extraordinary in talking about, mentioning, and marketing your OEM certifications. We at Collision Advice strongly believe in OEM certifications. We believe that they are going to play a more significant role in the future through telematics and connected vehicles, as well as OEM insurance. And so for the shops that have invested in those OEM certifications, they need to be extraordinary in sharing that information with the vehicle owner. So one of the examples we do at our conferences when we are speaking live is that we will bring 1 or 2 shops up on stage stage and we'll say, hey, tell us an OEM certification you have. And they'll say, for example, I have Nissan and I'm a DRP for this company or whatever the case may be. Well, what we do, or maybe they're not a DRP and they just say, hey, I'm Nissan or Toyota certified. And so we'll call that shop and say, hey, I just wrecked my Nissan. I've got ABC insurance. And what we see is that 99% of the time, whoever answers that phone starts going down the insurance path. Like, have you got an estimate yet? Have you filed a claim yet? And what they do is they never help that consumer to feel reassured that they've called the right place. And what we talk about is that when somebody's in an accident and they call your facility, they're feeling negative emotions, right? They're mad, they're frustrated, they're concerned, they're stressed, they're having anxiety, their car might not ever be the same again. So the first thing we should do is try to mention our OEM certifications. And I shouldn't even say try, that's a powerless word, but what we must do is mention our OEM certifications and about how we've invested in the training equipment to be OEM certified, and we've had advanced training on their vehicle. And so really, and then what we do is we call some shops, live, like we did at the Southeast Conference, and we see if they even mention that. And unfortunately, in most cases, they don't. So we talk about, again, that extraordinary customer service experience, right? I would encourage anybody on here, they don't have to use collision advice, right? What they could do is just have a friend or family member just call your shop and record the conversation. And the question I would leave everybody with is, whoever answers your phones, if I wreck my vehicle and I call your shop, are you going to make me feel less stressed, less anxious, less worried, less any of those negative emotions? And are you reassuring me that I've called the right place and I'm in good hands?
Right. And it's interesting because, you mentioned about social proof, and there was a book that came out years ago called Influence by a guy named Robert Cialdini. And social proof is one of those 6 areas of influence. But the first one is called reciprocity. And the whole idea of reciprocity is, so, Mike, if I give you a gift, what's your natural inclination?
Is I want to give you a gift back, or I want to reward you in some way or show my gratitude.
Right, exactly. And in a way, by telling the consumer these certifications, I really see that as almost giving a gift to that person. Like you're giving them that gift that they can feel reassured. And I think they're going to be more inclined to want to do business with that shop. Would you agree with that?
100% agree. I couldn't have said it better.
Okay. So, for anybody that's listening out there, I think this is a great book to read and kind of start to take some of these concepts that are there. So you talked a little bit about building culture. So I want to talk a little bit about employees, because, as we've talked about, my real role in working with shop owners is helping them to prepare the business for an eventual transfer down the road. And I specifically do family transfers and key employees. So why is it important to build culture, and how can that fit into building value into the business that down the road they can eventually, that an owner who wants to finally transition out of it can do so in a much smoother way?
Yeah. So I think people, they undervalue how important that is, right? I don't think people really understand that. And I think there's been tons of studies done that talk about ESI, right? Employee Satisfaction Index. How happy are people, in their jobs? Do they feel gratified? Do they feel rewarded? Do they feel appreciated? However, what I can say is that we work with people that buy and sell. Now, I don't represent those businesses such as yourself or others do, but my clients will seek out me for just some advice if they're in those discussions. And what I will tell you is 100%, without any hesitation or reservation, the clients of mine that have sold for the most money had the best cultures.
Yeah.
There's 100% a parallel there, right? Those that have the best culture, highest performing teams, absolutely 100% tend to get the most for their business from an evaluation standpoint.
That's great. And again, so what are some of the things when you talk about building this culture? Can you give some examples as to some ways that a shop owner can do this?
I got to tell you, probably one of the biggest ways that I've ever heard from a shop in regards to how to reward or build a good culture is a shop called Trinity Collision in Moncton, Canada. Okay. And it's a dealership shop. And there's a gentleman there by the name of Danny Brown and then another gentleman by the name of Rob, who's the manager. And it's a dealership shop. And what Mr. Taylor, who owns the dealership, what he does is when somebody does something extraordinary and he wants to recognize or reward them for that, he doesn't tend to do it through some type of financial bonus, because in his thought process, which I 100% agree with, is that if I give you $1,000 bonus and you spend that money 3 years from now, you won't remember what you spent it on. But if I can reward you or recognize you in a way that creates a memory, then you will remember that forever and tell your family and friends. So let me give you an example. Let's say, Matt, that you're working for me, you were doing a phenomenal job. Instead of me just giving you a bonus, maybe I'll take and pay somebody to clean your house every week for a month.
Wow.
Like that creates a memory, right?
Yeah.
And now what happens is you're going to talk about that. Your wife's going to talk about it, and it just builds a lot of goodwill. So I'm not saying that you have to pay somebody to clean somebody's house, but I'm just using that as an example, right? Find out something that's important to that person and reward them in a way that creates a memory, right? And if I can reward you, I guarantee you nobody will ever forget if you paid to clean their house for a month, right? Versus if you give them a bonus, they spend that money, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
I have another employer that I know of, a shop owner, and what he does is he does what's called paid vacation. Paid vacation. And so what he finds is that, let's say that, for example, for your vacation pay, you just get paid whatever your average is. And let's just say that you're making, $1,500 a week and you take off a week, you get $1,500. Well, you still have bills you have to pay, right? So you still have to take part of that $1,500, and unless you've saved, maybe you don't necessarily go on vacation. So what he does is once a year, not only does he pay you what your average is for your vacation, but he gives you an extra $2,000. And he says, but this can only be used to pay for a hotel or airfare or something, so that you have to use it to go on vacation. Or maybe if you're driving somewhere, you have to use that for spending money, and he reimburses you. But at the end of the day, he gives you a paid vacation, which means not only do you get your average, but you get that money that you can use again towards airfare or hotel or rent a beach house or something, right?
Right.
Again, that creates a memory. So I think there are a lot of things we can do like that, but we have to think outside the box. Another thing that's really important to me from a culture standpoint is there's a guy named Dr. Chapman that wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages, and then he wrote a book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And understand that not everybody's motivated by money.
Right.
It also depends on where you're at in your career. You may have someone that's like our age that hey, maybe we're getting our house down to where it's paid for, but what's more important to us is quality time with, grandkids or something, right? Or, everybody's just at a different point in their life. Some people are not motivated by money. They're motivated by the ability that they want the prestige of training to be able to say, hey, I'm a Mercedes-Benz factory certified technician. And so that prestige is why they want to work for your organization. So I think understanding that not everybody's motivated, not to say there aren't people motivated by money, but not everybody's motivated the same way.
Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense. And an old friend of mine used to always say that recognition, babies cry for it, men die for it.
Yes,
and
it's right.
Yeah, and I think it's so true. So when we're looking at recognition,
I've never heard that, but that's a great saying. I might have to plagiarize that from you.
You could go ahead. And listen, I stole it from somebody else, so you could steal it from me. It's not a problem. But so as they're looking to create these incentive programs, how are you recommending that shop owners measure, are there KPIs that are used, or how do they measure an employee's performance to be able to get this bonus or get, whatever this incentive is?
So the first thing is, and maybe this isn't necessarily the answer to your question, but I am a strong believer in doing employee reviews.
Okay.
I think employee reviews at a minimum once a year, but I prefer many reviews every quarter. And then twice a year, a very in-depth employee review, where we have a chance to connect with that employee and determine what's important to them and what are their career goals and what are their personal and professional goals. In addition, I generally like to give my employees a questionnaire to complete prior to that employee review, where I ask them to rate their own performance. Like, Matt, how would you rate your performance for in regards to attendance and punctuality on a scale of 1 to 5? How would you rate, et cetera, et cetera. And then also ask you to rate me, like, out of all the benefits we offer, how important is 401k to you on a scale of 1 to 5? How important is paid vacations? How important is paid time, whatever the case may be, right? And are there any things that you wish I offered as a benefit that I didn't offer? And so I think having that engagement through employee reviews is really, really important. Now, in regards to rewarding employees and KPIs, I think it really depends on what that person's role is, right? So, we build a lot of pay plans for people that people ask us to customize pay plans. I think,
right.
You had people that the employees were hourly, or the employees were like flat rate or commission. I think you're seeing people now that start to look outside the box for other types of pay plans, right? So one of the things that we talk about is that your pay plans, if they're going to be incentivized or based off of a KPI or key performance indicators, it needs to be SMART. And there's that acronym SMART, right? It has to be specific. It has to be measurable, has to be attainable. It has to be realistic, and it has to be timely. So it has to be a specific KPI. So let's say that I'm a customer service rep and I'm building a pay plan for you. It has to be specific. Like it's going to be based off of, online reviews or survey response rate or receivables. It has to be measurable, meaning is there a third-party trusted source that both the employee and the employer can use to monitor that performance? It has to also be attainable, meaning it has to be under their area of expertise. Like, a customer service rep may not have direct influence over outstanding parts credits. It's not their area of responsibility. So it has to be something that they could be responsible for, they could influence in their position. Then it has to be realistic. Like, you don't want to say, hey, your bonus is based on us hitting $500,000 a month in sales when the most you've ever done is 200,000.
Right.
And then it has to be timely, meaning that, is it paid weekly? Is it biweekly? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Right. So, and personally, I think monthly bonuses for the pre-month or previous month is probably the best way to do it. But, it's very, customer service reps are going to be, CSI, receivables, online reviews, survey response rate. A parts person might be off a gross profit. It could be parts returns. It could be parts credits. An estimator, it could be incentivized off of average labor hours, per estimate. It could be supplement ratio. If it's a technician, like a painter, for example, maybe it's based off of pay materials profitability or boost cycles or things of that nature. So I think there's a lot of things that you just have to think about what that person's area of responsibility is and how can you incentivize that. And I think pay plans can change, right? I mean, the industry's changing as well.
Right. Oh, exactly. Exactly. It's interesting. You mentioned about, these employee reviews. I went to a leadership conference last year that my coach was running. And it was interesting because part of the pre-work he sent out to me was, here, I want you to send this to your staff and I want them to evaluate you. And I wanted to get your thoughts on maybe that type of process, because I think sometimes that's a hard one for us sometimes as business owners,
Yeah. So when I owned my own shops, I was in a 20 group called the Coyote Vision Group that was moderated by Elena Satry, who's one of my greatest mentors in my life. And one of the things when we were in a 20 group with Elena was we had a guest speaker come in and he asked us, how many of us thought our employees trusted us? And I raised my hand. I'm like, my employees trust me. They love me. And he's like, would you allow me to come in and survey your employees? And I was like, absolutely. So I'm in my office doing some work and he surveys my employees. And the first thing he does when he walks in my office is he shuts the door. And I'm like, oh, crap, that's not a good sign, right? He's shut the door. And he said, Mike, would you like to know how many of your employees trust you? Keyword, trust me.
Trust you, right?
I said, absolutely. And it was less than 60%.
Wow.
And I was shocked. And I was like, oh my God, are they going to quit on me? I mean, what's going on? And he goes, no, Mike, they love working for you. They just don't trust you. And I was like, what do you mean? How can they love working for me but not trust me? He said, they don't trust you because you've made promises you did not keep. Like you said, hey, I'll send you to BMW school, or I'll, if you're in the start on the wash rack, I'll give you a chance to be a body tech, but then I hired somebody else, or, I'll review your pay after 90 days. And what I found was that broken promises lead to a loss of trust. So when I go on site now to do shop consulting, one of the things we do is we survey all of the employees and say, has anybody in owner or management position ever made a promise to you they did not keep? And would you be willing to share that with us? Because we have found that if we're going to affect change in a shop environment, the first thing we have to do is get everybody to trust everyone, right? And so, yes, I believe there's a lot of value in using a third party or a business coach. Maybe you get somebody from your paint company that will come in and do that for you. Maybe it's somebody like yourself or Laura Gay. I mean, there's a lot of companies that could probably assist with that, right?
Yep.
And I encourage you getting someone else. Maybe it's the pastor of your church, or maybe it's somebody at your bank. But, again, allowing people that they can share something privately without fear of retribution. And again, don't take it personal, right? Like, I had two choices when the guy told me less than 60% of my employees trusted me. I could take it personal and go out there and, be a seagull manager and crap on everybody and fly away, or I could do what it took to re-earn their trust. And that's what I feel that people should do. So it's difficult to not be defensive in a situation like that. But I think doing an annual survey of your employees to just see how they view you as an owner or a leader, or maybe you have department managers in your locations as well.
Right.
I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I look at so many shop owners that invest all this money in OEM certifications and training for their employees, but how much personal development money are they investing in themselves? And, I've heard some of your talks and you talk about missing parts discounts and little things. And I think it's not intentional. I mean, nobody wants to leave money on the table, but we get so busy being wrapped up in the business that that's where some of these things, I mean, I'm sure that's probably happened in your case where that trust was broken because you made that promise, but then you're busy trying to run the business that you forget about it. And then you're like, oh, I got to go address this. And you address it in a different way, not even thinking about what you had promised the employee. And, one of the things that, and my coach has taught me this, and I teach my clients this, is that the bigger that you start to grow, the more time you need to spend, not just in the business, but you need to spend on the business, working strategically, analyzing, looking at numbers. Where are we missing? Where can we increase profit margins? And also getting renewal time, getting out of the damn shop and just, relaxing a little bit because, Napoleon Hill talks about how to get your subconscious mind working on problems. And the only way we can do that is to be detached from the day to day, what the conscious mind is working on. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that. The first is that going back to the shops, I told you that we're able to sell their businesses for the most, that had the best culture. Another common thread that they all had was they had all invested in sending their team through Discover Leadership through Mike Jones in Houston, Texas.
Okay,
so I got to give Mike a big shout out. I can tell you everybody on the Collision Advice team, when they come to work for us, we send them through Discover Leadership even today. But I can tell you that Mike is really great at helping people to build a team and build culture. So shout out to Mike Jones at Discover Leadership. But the other piece of it, I would say, and let me just get this book out of my backpack real quick.
No problem.
There are two books that I've been recently reading, and one is called Rocket Fuel, and the other one is Traction. And
great, yeah.
And they both, and Rocket Fuel is a follow-up book to Traction, but it talks about, and again, I'll hold this up so anybody can see it, but it talks about that there are people that are visionaries and then there's implementers. And most of us that are entrepreneurs, we are visionaries, right? We have this vision for what we want our business to be, but we need implementers in our life to help us to make our dreams become reality. But I also think it's important, and I learned this from a gentleman who's unfortunately passed away. His name was Jerry Dalton. He owned Craftsman Auto Body in Virginia. And I remember one time I walked into an Auto Body Association meeting, and I was very frustrated. And Jerry's like, "What's wrong, Mike?" And I said, my doggone employees, right? This when I had my body shops. I was like, man, they just don't do things the way I want them to. And he started laughing, and I was like, Jerry, I don't think it's funny. What's so funny? And he goes, Mike, if they had your same passion, your same drive, they would own their own business. They wouldn't be working for you.
Right.
So you need to realize that, yes, you have a right to expect people to show up to work on time, wear their uniforms, etc. But they're not always going to be as driven or as passionate as you are as an entrepreneur, as an owner or manager, because of the fact that they were, that they'd own their own business, right? And that's okay. And you just need to understand that. So just to recap, I think investing in soft skills training for your people that are outside of the collision industry, but like Discover Leadership to build leaders, right? I think is really, really important. So shout out to Mike Jones. Number two is understand that without people that are implementers, none of us as visionaries would accomplish anything. And that's where I'm so blessed to have on my team, like Tracy Nabrowski and Tiffany Driggers, two of I love my entire team, but those two have been with me for over 25 years and they've helped me to implement a lot of my visions, and I'm thankful for them. And I would be nowhere without them. And then the third piece is just understand as an owner, not everybody's going to have the same passion as you. So don't be so frustrated with them.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? And I think, it's interesting. I run into this a lot. Actually, Frank Turlip wants me to speak on this at the CIC in July about alternatives to consolidation and I run into this a lot. And I know Laura does too, because Laura ends up sending a lot of people to me because sometimes they get to be our age and you kind of look up from under the hood and you're like, okay, what's next in life? I have no idea, right?
Yes.
And they don't know what the options are. And sometimes they think, it's a consolidator. And I was relating to you earlier about, I had guys coming up to me in the conference, one guy in particular who was like, hey, look, I know I could sell my shop to consolidators. He does multiple shops. He goes, I don't have any kids that are interested in the business, but I want to take care of my employees. And I think it's important to also, and I want you to address this a little bit, as you talk about these employees reviews, is find out what their future vision is. Do at some point maybe they have some visionary capabilities and maybe at some point want to be able to transition the business because, not only is it about your exit now, but you've also got to think about, heck, if I get hit by a Mack truck, what's going to happen to my shop and what's going to happen to my family's income. So wanted to talk about trying to get into your employees' heads about where they see themselves as going down the road.
Yeah. So when I think about that question that you posed, one of the things I would tell everyone that's listening now is that every single thing you do today and tomorrow and in the future should directly be related to what you want your succession plan to be. Every choice you make should be based on where you want to be at, whenever it is you want to retire, right? Your end goal should dictate your current goals, right?
Right.
So with that said, I do think it's important that when you do your employee reviews to ask your employees or your team, what are their personal goals? Mm-hmm. And in my mind, they have to be able to accomplish their personal goals by accomplishing my company goals. So let's say, for example, that they want to send their kids through college. Well, do you think by working for me, you will be able to send your kids through college one day? If that answer is yes, then we're a good fit. If that answer is no, or I'm not sure, then maybe I'm not the best employer for you. So let me help you to find a job, right? I had a young lady that worked for me one time when I had my shops, and her personal goal was she wanted to open up a catering business. So could she accomplish her personal goals by working for me? And she didn't think that she could. And I said, well, sometimes we will cater food to some of the people that refer us work. How about whenever I need to do that, as long as you're willing to come in a little earlier, stay a little late and get your work done, I'll let you take off to go cater it. And then you can find out if that's truly a love of your life or is it just a hobby? And then if that's the case, then as long as you train your replacement, I'll help you to write a business plan and get clients and help you to become. And she has a successful catering business to this day. So wow. I think understanding people's personal goals, but also you may uncover that and your employee reviews that some of the people that work for you may desire to own their own shop one day.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, then start having that conversation now as to how your compensation plan may prepare for that. The reality is there are some people that may work with you that will be able to afford to buy your business. There are others that may want to, but maybe because they're taking care of their parents or something like that, they don't have the way to save the money. So maybe part of their compensation package is that you give them a bonus that goes into like an escrow that could be used for a future down payment of 20% with SBA. And then they get a loan for SBA for the other 80% and then buy you out. So if you think you identify someone like that, and maybe it's one person or multiple people, start having those conversations now. There's also things like phantom stock, right? Or golden handcuffs that like maybe you say, hey, if I sell my business or grow it, I'm going to give you a percentage of the sales as long as you stay on for 1 year to ensure a smooth transition. If you're looking to sell your business and you have someone that is willing to stay on, that's a key employee, and you say, look, if you stay on for a year, after I sell, I'll reward you in this financial way, that makes your business worth more. But again, if you've got somebody that you think you're going to want to sell your business to in the future that's not a family member, I think you start those conversations now, right? And there's other things you want to do as well, like making sure that, I encourage people to set up a management company, any of their personal expenses, they're running through that. And then the shop just pays a flat percentage to the management company so that they can then make it easier to streamline their financials, but also accurate financials are important. Right. But I will say this, right? It's very unfortunate that I have had instances in my career where somebody's spouse reached out to me. Let's say that the husband was the shop owner and they passed away unexpectedly. Their significant other, their wife, had no experience in our business. And then a manager just started taking advantage of them, right? And eventually the business, they either got stolen from or the business got run on the ground. So if you're listening to this right now, this session that you and I are doing, and you're an owner, you owe it to yourself to make sure that you've got something in place that's going to protect your family should you pass away. Unfortunately, that your family is not going to be, or, you have a wife or children that are stuck with something they know nothing about. And every day that this business gets devalued. One of the things that I also have seen done is that, I have two shop clients that are both within 2 hours of proximity of each other's shop. And they both kind of have this agreement that if one of us passes away, the other one will get like a consulting fee from the estate, and they'll help to manage the business and keep it afloat until it gets sold, right? Another thing I say is that if you're looking to do succession planning and you're looking for your children to take over your business, make sure you always have an arbitrator or mediator built into that. So if the two siblings can't come to an agreement, still keep the family unit intact. But again, Matt, that's where I believe your expertise is.
Right.
And I think people should be thinking about now, again, what's your succession plan? And start thinking about that today, because I cannot tell you the stories that I personally know firsthand. That's factual, not made up, where family members were left in a bad way, and then maybe in some cases even losing everything they had.
Yeah. And thank you for that. Amen. Amen. Because I'll tell you what, that's one of the biggest challenges that I run into is trying to get, a lot of times guys are coming to me and it's like, okay, I want to go and I'm like ready to go now. And these things take time to put together, and it was interesting. You mentioned about having the mediator. This just happened recently, just a couple months ago. Got a referral and met this new prospect, and I was sitting in the lunchroom with he and his son. So his son wanted to buy the business, but dad was still like, he was having some he wanted to sell it to him, but he was having some challenges. Sometimes you can't take the shop. You can take the man out of the shop, but you can't take the shop out of the man. You know how that goes, and anyway, so they start screaming at each other. They're going back and forth. And I've just got to sit there with my arms folded. I'm smiling. And finally the guy looks at me and he goes, you're going to mediate these things, right? And I'm like, I say sometimes I'm 90% psychologist, the financial piece, once you get there, it's like putting the pieces of the puzzle together. But when you put a puzzle together, you got to know what the picture looks like before you can do it. And I think it's really important to have, first off, to create a vision for what you want your life and your business to look like. And then how do we create a plan out of that? And then we have these conversations very early on. So I thank you for saying that, because it's always good to have somebody who's esteemed as you out there telling shop owners that.
Yeah, it saddens me when I see those family situations happen, and whether it's with parents and children or two parents, right? And one of them respectively deceases prematurely, and it's just very sad. And I just cannot encourage people enough to make sure their affairs are in order and that there's somebody that understands our industry that can help, right?
Right. No, exactly. And, as I grow in this business, and I've really come to love this business, and I look at the independent shop and I always think, who's going to take care of communities better? Who's going to take care of families better? I really think it's the independent shop. And I think that's why I'm just so passionate about working with these independent family-owned shops. So thank you.
So one of the other things I share with people is that when people are thinking about selling their business, why would you want to sell the golden goose that lays the golden eggs, right? If the golden goose is producing golden eggs for you, right? And why would you want to sell the golden goose, right? So, I mean, just think about that, right?
Exactly.
Still a great industry. It's not doom and gloom.
No,
it's still an amazing industry, and I just think people need to embrace it. I mean, every job, every profession, every career is going to have its challenges, and ours are getting paid from third party payers, and ours is dealing with employees or training and lack of people right now that we have a talent shortage, right? But again, it's still a great industry, and we just got to persevere and stay positive. It's so funny. I was having dinner with someone the other night, and he shared a statement with me that I thought was very profound. It was from a young man, and he said, what do you think's more important, motivation or discipline? And I think it's discipline, right? Discipline is what gets you up and keep going when you don't want to, right? Motivation might jumpstart you, but discipline is really what it takes. And I think we just need to be disciplined.
Yeah, and we can't always be motivated. It's just, the motivation comes and goes. But if we have the disciplines to do the things that we know that we need to do, that's what's going to progress us in the long run. And I think, as a kind of a plug for Mike, Mike's through Collision Advice, does great work in helping you to build value in your business. And, I think sometimes, especially as we're talking about some of these, insider transitions, you wonder, well, how are they going to pay for it? Well, if you increase cash flow, the increase in that cash flow can use to help to fund a lot of these programs that you have. So I think, a lot of the things that you're doing for shop owners out there, Mike, can really benefit them in more ways than just making sure they're more profitable. It can help to secure a future for them.
Yes, absolutely. And again, also understand your financials and have clean financials, right? Like if you're not making good money or you're making minimal profits or losing money and your CPA is not sitting down and having a conversation with you about it, you need to look for another CPA. And and again, we talked about culture, and that's where I just need to give a shout out to my team. I have 12 incredible team members on my team, and man, I just love them so much. And I can just tell you that without mentors in my life and without the awesome team I have, I would not be as successful as I hopefully am today. And I just credit to all of my team and the mentors before me.
That's great. And I think we all feel that same way. And I know a lot of people are listening to us feel that way about you, Mike. So, I know you're a humble guy, but you deserve the kudos that you get. And I know people really respect you and value the information that you provide them. So I want to thank you. I mean, I know we could go on and on this.
Thank you, Matt.
There's so many different directions we can go, but I do want to keep this at a reasonable time and respect your time too. So any final thoughts do you want to leave?
No, just, it's not a doom and gloom business. It's an absolutely incredible business. So, just suck it up, buttercup, continue to go through there. And Matt, I am just grateful for the opportunity to be on your show here, and may the good Lord just bless you and everybody that's listening in. So God bless you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And God bless you too. And the last blessings go to you, the audience. And thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. If you've not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. That way, every time a new episode comes out, it'll get downloaded directly to your device. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a 5-star review. We certainly appreciate it. That helps us to go up on the charts there too. So with that, again, I want to thank you, Mike, for being on. Fabulous stuff once again. Thank you for all you do for the industry, and hope to see everybody real soon. So take care and God bless. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of High Lift Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, DBA High Lift Financial, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state security authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.